So I decided to post a couple of videos on the graphing calculator. The first thing we're going to do is a linear regression. And we are going to do number one. This is the one I'm going to do. I know we've done this and looked at this before in class, but just so you have someone walking through it with you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Stat and Edit to enter this information into lists 1 and 2. So if you have information or data in those lists, you can arrow up so that list 2 is highlighted and then hit clear enter and do the same thing for list 1. And then we are just going to enter the information, the data, number of hours, and the score. Number of hours will go into list 1. Hitting enter after each side. Then we're going to right arrow over to list 2, and then we're going to enter the data in of the scores, 75, 62, and so on. So now we have the data entered, and then the next thing we're going to do is make sure our stat plot is on in the way we want it to be. So we hit second, then the y equals button, and then we're going to go to stat 1 or plot 1, hit enter. To turn it on while it's flashing on the word on, you just hit enter, and that turns it on. We should have this first graph highlighted, that's the scatter plot. L1, L2, and then you can choose the mark there. So we are going to hit enter, and we are actually from this screen we can go ahead and look at the graph. And again, to get the window to fit around the data nicely, we hit zoom 9. And there's the data of the number of hours and the test scores and how they are related. You can see it's a positive correlation since the data is going up as we go to the right, which kind of makes sense. The more hours you study, better your score is going to be. Now, we can find the line of best fit doing the linear regression by hitting Stat, scrolling over to Calc, and we are going to do number 4, the linear regression. Okay. Now, before we actually perform the linear regression, we want to store this someplace. Now, those of you with the newer operating system, you have that screen that has the X list, L1, Y list, L2, and then down here about the third line you have the calculate. You're going to want to arrow down until your cursor is flashing behind the calculate. Then what you are going to do is you're going to follow the same step that I follow right now. Once the cursor is flashing behind the calculate menu, you're going to go to vars, right arrow to y vars, function, y sub 1, so that now I have y sub 1 after the linear regression. You are going to have y sub 1 after the store regression equation. I'm sorry, you should have been flashing after the store regression equation. Now, once we are here, you are going to hit enter. What we just told the calculator to do is take that regression equation and store it into y sub 1. So then when we hit enter, there is our equation, y equals 4.47x plus 33.31 about. And we discussed in class what the slope means and what the y-intercept means. The y-intercept means that if you don't study at all, you should expect a score of around 33%. The slope of 4.47 means that for every hour you study, your percentage should go up about 4.5%. That's what that slope represents in this case. Now, if you go back to the graph and hit graph, not only will you have the data points, but now the line through those data points. Okay. So that's there, and then we can estimate. We can estimate things. We can estimate what score we would get if we study for 6 hours. There are two ways you can do that. The first way is you could hit the trace button, and up here should say y sub 1. If it doesn't say y sub 1, we're going to hit the down arrow until it says y sub 1. And then you can hit, if you want to estimate your score for studying for 6 hours, you hit 6. Notice how there's a big X equals 6 down there, and then enter. And there's your score. Okay. If you wanted to estimate for 10 hours, you could estimate. Again, it doesn't say y sub 1, so we hit trace. It doesn't say y sub 1, so we hit down arrow. And we could estimate what score we could expect for 10 hours. Now, there is a second way you could do that, and that is back on the home screen, so we can hit second quit. And if you don't have this, it's okay. A lot of the new operating system, once you hit second quit, it clears out the home screen, no problem. But we can call back y sub 1 by hitting vars, y vars, function, y sub 1, and then we want to put the number of hours in parentheses. For example, if we wanted to estimate our score, if we studied for 10 hours, and that was the same score we would get, we got when we traced. Now, let's say, for example, we had a goal of a score in mind. For example, what if we wanted to get a C, 70%? So we could estimate how many hours we need to study to get that C. So we can go to y equals, and let's say our goal is 70. Now if we go back to graph, okay, we have our regression line and the horizontal line at y equals 70. So we're just going to calculate that intersection. So to calculate that intersection, we go second trace, right above it you see the calc, so second trace, and we're going to calculate an intersection. Okay, and then make sure it says y sub 1 there. Is that one of the curves we want to find the intersection of? Yes, so hit enter. Y sub 2 the other one? Yes. And then, is that my guess? Sure, looks like it's about on the intersection. So we'd need to study about 8.2 hours in order to gain a C. Now, that is the tutorial on the linear regression on the graphing calculator. The next video will be a tutorial on how we can graph systems of inequalities on the graphing calculator.